G'day everyone, welcome to Live on the Hulls and happy Christmas everyone from Janet and I.
I'm a snowman.
And I'm Santa, and we're finishing our hardtop today. We're basically laminating the last two layers on our foam core hardtop. It's been a monster. It's going to be 32 degrees here today, so we're really working hard on getting it done early. It's about, 10 o'clock coffee time, so we're going to have a coffee before we start. So by the time we get it going, it's going to be probably 38 degrees in here, and the humidity's punching up as well. We're here in the middle of summer. So let's get into this week's episode and have a great Christmas, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for viewing.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Thanks, guys. Catch ya. So Monday morning on Saturday, I glued this in, so I should be able to remove and get my first aid kit back. Right, that's not going anywhere, right there. So today I'm going to give this a good trim. I'm going to get some vinyl ester, filled fibre, and fill in all in here to try to get this a little bit more radius, because this now needs to be fully glassed into place to integrate it into the deck.
Now, it should be noted that I received a comment last week that blew me away. It read something like this: "I'm so glad you don't bother editing out the boring, trivial, tedious and uninteresting content." Now, I'm not sure whether to take this as a compliment or a complaint, so the reality is that boat building is full of the above-mentioned tasks, and I guess if I edited that out, then there'd be a blank screen week after week. So in reality, I really only ever put in less than 1% of my week's efforts on these videos. I go home with around 100 gig a day of footage, and then have to sit and tediously go through it and watch myself work, and it's quite a brutal punishment to actually do the work and then have to come home and watch it again. So I'm sorry, mate, if you didn't like it, and I hope it was a compliment, but if it wasn't, find another channel, buddy.
Alright, that's finished. That has just been such a pleasing result for something that wasn't even really supposed to be there. Basically, I've completely wrapped it, peel plied it. It's had 4 layers of 600 double bias on that all the way round, and I've tied it in back into the window mullion, so it's almost like it never happened before. And yeah, I'm really pleased that I've done that. There was a lot of debate as to whether I was going to do it, but I'm so glad I've done it now. It's going to totally change the way that I rig the boat. How I'm going to tie that in inside here into this module here is another question. Basically, this centerpiece here is going to then completely wrap around it, and I will make that disappear into something that looks a bit like that. But yeah, that's just superb. Now, I've just spent the last 4 hours down in there just trimming, remeasuring, and God, I'm just sick of being in there. And after cutting out the hatches last night, I wish I'd done that last week before I started trimming in there, because the light and the access is so much better. Even though it's psychological, not having the hatches above me was such a massive change, and I was able to actually see clearly and heaps of light, and definitely wasn't claustrophobic then. But all of these edges now have all been checked, double checked, and then triple checked and cut once. But I actually cut it after the first measure. I've now done a complete measurement, 50 centimeters all the way across there. That's looking beautiful and clean. I need to start to prepare the surface around the top of it. It's going to be some time before I finish it, but I intend to get it glassed in pretty quickly, because what I want to do a test drop of the deck down onto the mast post, and I don't want to have any excess force on it. I'm glued in with Techniglue. It's going to be rounded off and cosmetically repaired here, but firstly I need to do some serious filleting and tabbing. The one thing I won't be doing is having these sharp edges, because obviously I can't roll glass over. I need to round all of these edges off and I need to mask it so that I don't damage the surrounding substrates as well, because I've got the anti-slip and all these other things to deal with here. Is I'll mask around the margins of where I intend to tab it over. It'll be tabbed probably about 50 mil each side, and then solid glass. I'm going to do another 2 or 3 layers of very, very thick 600 double bias with 300 in between it to make sure that I've got around about 1 centimetre of base underneath that. Remembering the mast post is actually underneath it here, so it's got plenty of support. I do have a lot of filling to be done in here, basically with cotton flock and vinyl ester, which will give it a bit of a structural base, and then I'll be able to glass over the top. So I'll be tabbing back to around about here. First thing I'm going to do is mask it all up, and then I'll start to prepare it and take some time to do this preparation, because this isn't the essential part. The essential part is more underneath, because once that's locked down, I'm not going to have access easily to be able to finish the laminates. Worth remembering that I'm on a slope here, so it's very hard to hold position without sliding down off the front of the boat, and I almost went for a slip down the front hill. So yeah, very, very funny. So I've got gel coat here and about 4 millimeters of solid glass that I have to sand off, or I'm never going to be able to get the bond that I need. So essentially I'm needing to round this off. I'm just going to take the gel coat off for now, but I do need to go in a couple of millimeters into that solid glass to ensure that I can get this fair with this. It's going to take a bit of work to get this done. Same deal all the way around these margins here. I'm going to have to go deep into the deck structure to be able to make sure that my laminate actually blends well with this part back here. And it's very grubby and still needing a lot of polishing, but that's going to take quite a bit of fairing and a lot of polishing. Okay, it's Tuesday afternoon, and on Thursday morning I intend to drop this deck down to see how it's going to marry into all of my bulkheads and doors and surfaces that I've already pre-prepared. The only thing I haven't chopped yet is the dinette module that you see in front of me here. It's still loose. It can actually still slide in and out. I'm actually going to slide that astern around about 3 feet, and that'll allow this whole cabin top to come down onto the surfaces everywhere other than on the dinette module. And what that'll allow me to do is work out the mast post. I do not want to be doing those two together. It's nice that I can slide that out, let that thing come down, and it'll still fit, and I can get in behind it and really establish the mast post height. By doing that, I also get to clean out underneath it. Because I've been doing a lot of cutting, there's a lot of fiberglass dust and plywood dust and everything in there, and I really want to tidy up and get everything out of here before I do a test fit. Really want to have a nice, neat go at it, and then whatever I need to bring back in, I'll bring it back in. I've got a lot of stuff in here. There's heaps of junk. I've got the whole top over here. It's just tools that I keep using. It is an arduous task getting in and out of this boat right now, but once I get this dropped down, I'm going to be able to walk out off the back cockpit fantastic, because at the moment we're crawling through the aft bedroom and across the bed into the engine room and out through where the sugar scoops are going to be. So yeah, lots to do. This whole thing will move back. It'll allow me to drop it, get a good feel for how I'm sitting over the entirety of the boat, and then I'll jack the boat back up and do another 2 or 3 weeks work bonding everything in and getting ready for the final drop. All right, now pulled that out and revealed this cluster of cuts that need to be made. Now they're going to be horrible to make, because there's a lot of angles I'm simply not going to be able to get to easily in the confines of the space that I've given myself. I may need to move it forward a bit more, but they've got to be made. I don't have any choice. I need to drop that 50 centimeters down to around about where that line is. And there's an issue too, that the insert that I've made is going to sit on the center bulkhead as well. So I need to really consistently draw that out and cut it exactly right. It's a pretty major modification, but it has to be done because this deck is not coming down unless I cut it, because that's the only thing that's going to basically all hang on that mast post. So I'll have a look at it from this angle and you'll see how radical a cut this is going to be. So I made the mast post 1.3 meters long, and I need at least 1 meter for the engineering to be correct, and I have got 105 centimeters, which is exactly right. Now this mast post isn't just glued in there, it's actually going to be through bolted from 3 sides into the bulkheads as well, thereby suspending it in the position it's in. It's also epoxied and taped and laminated and filleted, so there's no way it's going to move. It's essentially one monocoque construction, that whole thing. But at the end of the day, I've still got to cut it. I'm dreading it. I'm going to get into it.
Absolutely everything is at testicle height. Doesn't matter where I go, always at the wrong height.
So I'm getting ready now to drop this deck, and I've used 2 of the jacks off my lifting truck down on the front there on jack stands, and I've got a couple of other supports there, and obviously I've got my supports all the way around the perimeter at 50 centimeters. Everything's a given. Everything's at 50 centimeters. Now I've just had a massive clean up and got everything set there because it's now out of my way here as I trimmed the mast post. I need to be able to drop this all the way to the floor. The issue I've got there is that I've got a jack under there, so I need firstly to be able to take the weight off it under here, but these 44 gallon drums are here. So I've got no ability to be able to drop it without a crane or a forklift attached by some means. However, because I have this rebate here that the drums are sitting on, or sitting on the drums here, I'm going to reuse the other 2 jacks off the lifting truck. Now they're 100 centimeter high jacks, a 50 centimeter bore, so that'll essentially take the place of that 44 gallon drum and this one, and then I'll be able to remove this one under here and lower it down to around about 60 centimeters. From there, I can use a standard car jack. I'll swap a standard car jack under there and another standard car jack under there, and basically then be able to do the final lower down whilst Janet is on that jack And John's on this jack, letting it down a centimetre at a time. We're going to let it down ultra slow, making sure that it comes down vertical. That's about the only way I can do it without having some sort of a gantry across the top of the tent here. Now that's not possible. I just simply, we've got 1.3 tons of weight. I reckon it's around 1.25 at the moment, because I reckon I've cut out 50-60 kilos of excess bulkheads and shit that I've chucked out of here, plus all the other hoo-ha I've got in here. And these additional jack stands I've just made, now they have a clevis type pin in the bottom of them, and that's a bit of a pain in the ass. So I've had to hole saw out a hole in these blocks of wood, and then I've put a bolt through the bottom to keep them upright. On the top here I'll have another pad that fits over the top of the actual jack head, and that'll spread the load a little bit, so much so that it'll look a bit like this and this. But the great thing is I'm going to be able to get it down to within range of a normal standard car jack. My cockpit roof project is coming along really well over there on the other side of the factory, and basically I thought I'll do a test piece on a piece of the scrap that I've cut off the panels that I'm actually putting in that flybridge mold. Very important that you always test the material with which you're going to lay up on. And sometimes I've actually fallen foul of this a couple of times where I've tried to lay up gel coat and laminates on ABS plastic, for instance, because often the styrene will attack the surface and create bubbles, and obviously that's going to cause a couple of problems. Firstly, it's going to be a release problem, and secondly, you may end up with a very unusual surface underneath, and you could even end up with the stuff not setting. Often gel coat will not set if it's been laid up on epoxy because of the amine blush, and obviously they're incompatible chemistries. So I've done a small test piece. I've got an offcut of the MDF, and you'll notice it has a really glossy surface on it. It's not melamine. It's I'm not really sure what it is. It actually looks like a clear, it's almost like a piano finish. It's a solid, very solid and incredibly resilient sort of plastic that's been laid up on the MDF, and obviously it comes from Italy or Spain or somewhere. So I'm really not sure what it's going to react like. So I thought I'll do some gel coat. I actually laid up some gel coat on this yesterday, and I just want to test it to make sure that what comes off here is going to be a reasonable surface, and in fact that it will release. Now that's had 3 coats of release wax on it, and I'm just about to demold it and just have a look. It's only gel coat, there's no substrate behind it. So obviously if the gel coat gets some heat, there's a bit of exothermic sort of reaction that goes on when that's setting. We don't want that eating into the substrate below, because I may get to the point that I can't demold the product. So always do a test piece. Here's the result. Demolded, it's only gel coat on here. But very importantly, I'm looking for a good, firstly, an easy release, and secondly, no damage to the underlying surface. And it's so important. I generally do this with every single different type of material that I like to lay up on. And because I'm not using a fiberglass mold to make this, just try to make sure that everything's going to release. I'll have a look. Now I would call that perfect. It has not damaged the surface of our substrate, and even more, I've got a perfectly smooth finish. Now this is going to be the surface that I'm aiming for my cockpit roof, and then I'm going to add anti-slip panels and probably paint them on, or I've actually got a mold for anti-slip. I would call that a success. Well worth testing it. Took me about 10 minutes to make that, and the next day I'll come and demolded it. That's actually better than I'd get off a fiberglass mold. So yep, that material, I don't know what it is, but it's brilliant for molding, and I'll probably end up using this to make my caravan in a later YouTube series. Oh, did I say caravan I'm going to build? Ooh, that's very interesting, isn't it?